The ocean has 1,000 ways to kill you. But only one voice. It is a constant roar that devours everything. The screams of my companions, the creaking of wood as it breaks, the beating of your own terrified heart. My ship, the Odyssey, broke in half 10 minutes ago, or maybe 10 hours. Time dies first when you are drowning. I am alone. Hypothermia is a cold fog creeping from my feet up to my chest. Each wave is a hammer trying to tear me away from my last piece of life. I know this is the end. There is no rescue. In a storm like this, there is no hope. So I do the only thing left to do. I let go. I let the sea claim me. The cold is absolute. The pressure in my ears is agony. And then, just when the air in my lungs turns to fire, something changes the roar of the storm. Fades away, replaced by a silence, unnatural, and a light, a blue, ghostly light rising from below. I opened my eyes, expecting to see the afterlife. I saw something much, much older. She rose from the depths, like a goddess born of a nightmare. Her body, an impossible fusion of power and beauty. Skin of an iridescent bluish tone, adorned with seaweed and black pearls. From her head sprouted 2 massive curved horns, like those of an obsidian ram. Her face was perfect, angular, but with something wild, almost demonic. And the lower part of her body, a mermaid's tail, covered in scales, shimmering with all the colors of oil on water. She was looking at me, and there was no anger in her eyes, and there was evaluation. I was drowning. My lungs were about to burst. Darkness began to creep at the edges of my vision. She approached, moving through the turbulent water, as if it were air. She grabbed me by the collar of my shirt, with a force that was at once gentle and absolute. My instinct screamed, but my body was a useless puppet. She brought her face close to mine. Around her lips, of an impossible red, was a pattern of jewels or bioluminescent scales that flickered softly. She smelled of salt, of ozone, and of something deeper, the solitude of millennia. Then, she did something my panicked brain could not process. She kissed me. It was not a kiss. It was an invasion. I felt something cold and alive sliding from her mouth into mine, down my throat. My body arched, convulsing. I wanted to scream, but my lungs filled with water, and then I could breathe. The pain vanished. Panic was replaced by an icy clarity. I could breathe. The water was no longer my enemy. It was my new air. She pulled away, her expression unchanged. And then, her voice filled my mind. It was not a sound. It was a pressure, a song of the depths that resonated directly in my bones. You have been chosen. The surface is no longer your home. The abyss claims you. And without further ceremony, she dragged me downward, into the darkness from which she came, into her realm. The descent was a journey through hell. The pressure should have crushed me into pulp. But somehow, the gift she gave protected me. The sunlight vanished completely, replaced by the absolute blackness of the abyss. I was not blind, somehow. My eyes could see in the darkness, perceiving the currents and the ghostly shapes moving around us. We were not alone. Creatures science has never seen, and religion never dared to imagine, escorted us. They were her guards, her court, and I was her prisoner, her new acquisition. The cold was so intense, it should have frozen the blood in my veins. But an unnatural warmth radiated from her, keeping me alive. Her kingdom, it was not built. It had grown, towers of black coral, scratching the darkness, gardens of anemones, swaying like ghosts, and in the center, a palace carved from a single abyssal mountain with veins of some luminescent mineral that pulsed like a heart. Welcome to Nolias, your tomb and your cradle. She led me through the gates of her palace, an arch large enough for a whale to pass through. Inside, it was full of her subjects. Amphibious humanoids with large, lidless eyes. Beings with shells like crabs, but with cruel intelligence in their movements. All bowed as she passed, and all looked at me with hunger, with curiosity, as if I were food or an experiment. She dragged me to the throne room. The throne was not gold, nor jewels. It was the fossilized skeleton of a sea creature. So colossal, my mind could not grasp its size. The queen sat upon it. Her iridescent tail coiled around the ancient bones. She threw me to the ground before her. For the first time since she pulled me from the water, I spoke, or tried to. The sound that left my mouth was not a word. It was a strange gurgle, an aquatic echo. But she understood my question. Why? Why me? Your race is fragile, temporary. A blink in the history of this world. But you possess something my people have lost. A spark. Chaotic adaptability. A capacity for rapid change. Your DNA is malleable. She leaned forward. Her eyes, devoid of emotion, studied me like a specimen. Thin, dark tentacles moved gently from her shoulders, testing the water around me. I am the last of my line. My kings are gone. My consorts have turned to dust. My race fades. In the stillness of eternity, I need a new beginning. I need new blood, new fire, to mix with my ice. The title of the story you're hearing already told you where this is going, but hearing it from her, feeling it in my mind like a death sentence, was 1,000 times worse. The cold of the abyss seized my heart. You, little mortal of the surface, will give me heirs. You will sire my new brood, and they will not be fragile. They will not be temporary. They will be the next era of this planet. They will be perfect monsters, born from the fury of the surface and the power of the abyss.
Monsters.
Panic and denial are luxuries of the surface world. Down here, in the realm of pressure and darkness, there's only acceptance. My body trembled, but not from the cold. It was the trembling of prey that finally understands there is no escape. It took me to a chamber, carved into the same bioluminescent rock. It was not a cell, it was a nest. The floor was soft sand. and the walls were covered in strange corals that radiated a gentle warmth. They left me there, alone. Days and nights merged into a perpetual twilight. They brought me food. It was nothing I could recognize. Glowing plants, tasting of metal, and chunks of abyssal creatures' flesh that dissolved in my mouth. At first, I refused to eat. But hunger down here is different. A void that consumes you from within. I ate, I survived, I waited, and while I waited, I began to change. The changes were subtle at first. One day, I noticed the skin of my hands looked paler, almost translucent. I could see the blue veins beneath with unnatural clarity. A few cycles later, I realized my eyes no longer needed time to adjust to the darkness. They simply saw. The transformation accelerated. The skin on my arms and chest began to glow, faintly iridescent, like the inside of an abalone shell. My nails grew harder, darker. The hair on my body fell away, leaving me smooth and streamlined. I was not becoming one of them. I was becoming something in between. A creature of two worlds, belonging to neither. The worst was the silence. On the surface, there's always background noise. The wind, the cars, the people. Down here, the only sound was the beating of my own heart, slower, heavier each time. And sometimes, at the edge of my hearing, I heard her song, same psychic melody. She used to speak to me. It was a call, a promise, a constant reminder of my purpose. I was not a prisoner to be executed. I was cattle being fattened. They were preparing my body, adapting it for the coming ritual. They were erasing the man I had been, leaving only the vessel they needed. She did not visit me during this time. She let me marinate in my own loneliness and transformation. She watched me. I knew it. Sometimes I felt her presence in my mind, a cold and distant curiosity, probing my thoughts, my memories. She was learning what it meant to be human, so she could strip it away more effectively. I lost track of time. Was it weeks, months? The concept of time was a relic of the sun I could no longer remember. My old life, my job, my family, and my friends felt like the dreams of someone else. The only reality was the abyssal palace, the strange food, and the changes creeping across my skin. One day, the amphibian guards returned. They did not drag me. They escorted me. My body, now thinner, paler, more aquatic, moved through the water with an ease that would have terrified me weeks earlier. Now, it felt natural. The air, or the water, vibrated with energy. The Queen's court was gathered at the edges of the cavern, their lidless eyes fixed on me. And on the opposite edge of the pool, waiting for me, was her. She wore no pearls or seaweed. She was naked, her iridescent skin and her dark horns shining with power. Your body is ready. The vessel is prepared. It is time to plant the seed. The fear I felt was not the sharp panic of the surface. It was a cold terror, deep and abyssal. This would not be a physical act in the human sense. It would be a ritual, a creation, and I was only an ingredient. I walked toward the pool. Each step was a surrender. I submerged myself in the liquid. It was neither cold nor hot. It felt like nothing, like stepping into the void. She awaited me at the center. She extended her hands, placing them on either side of my head. Her claws dug slightly into my skin, but I felt no pain. Her voice filled my mind, not with words, but with images, with history. My people did not evolve on this world. We came here from the stars. When your planet was still fire and steam, we were fleeing something called the silence, a force that consumes life, that consumes creation. We lost the war. This ocean was our last refuge. I saw galaxies burn. I saw civilizations of light and sound collapse before a devouring nothingness. I saw her people, beings of pure energy, fleeing across the cosmos, adopting physical forms to hide in Earth's depths. The visions overwhelmed me. The weight of eons of war and loss crashed into my small, fragile human mind. She was not a simple queen of monsters. She was the last guardian of a cosmic legacy, the last survivor of a lost war. We hid, we adapted, but loneliness and time erode even gods. We lost our spark, our ability to change, to fight. We stagnated, and the silence sooner or later will find this world. Your species, so noisy and chaotic, is a beacon in the dark. It will attract the enemy, and when it comes, nothing will stop it. Now I understood. She did not want heirs out of vanity. She wanted soldiers. She wanted a new race, a fusion of her eternal resistance and humanity's chaotic spark, a race capable of fighting the war her ancestors had lost. She pressed her forehead against mine. The pattern of jewels on her skin shone with a blinding intensity. Now, give me your chaos. Give me your mortality. Give me your fire. And I will give you eternity. I felt as if my soul were being unraveled like a thread. Every memory, every emotion, every piece of what made me human was absorbed by her. I was not fathering her brood. I was being consumed to create it. And in the darkness of that agony, I fainted. I awoke again in the nest. I was alone. My body ached with a fatigue beyond the physical. I felt hollow, empty, as if the most important part of me had been cut out. I looked at my hands. The changes had stopped. The transformation was complete. Time lost its meaning again. I waited in the void. I did not know if the ritual had worked. I did not know if I had survived, or if this was only an echo of myself. The silence in my mind was deeper than ever. The Queen's song was gone. Then, one day, the guards returned. But this time, their behavior was different. There was no threat in their posture. There was reverence. They stepped aside at the entrance of my chamber, and she entered. She carried the fruit of our ritual. She carried her brood. She carried my children. She approached, and for the first time, I felt something from her that was not power nor curiosity. It was a strange emotion, almost protective. It worked. The fire is mixed with the ice. The new era is about to be born. She took me back to the ritual cavern. The dark pool was gone, replaced by a gigantic nest, made of soft, luminous corals. She ordered me to sit by her side. The birth would not be like that of humans. It would be an event for the entire kingdom. The moment came. There were no screams of pain. The queen simply focused. And from her body emerged several large, leathery eggs. They were dark, but with luminous veins swirling inside them. She placed them gently in the nest. There were seven new princes and princesses of the abyss. We waited. And while we waited, I prepared for the worst. What would emerge from those eggs? Monsters with tentacles and claws. Amphibian nightmares with their mother's cruel intelligence and their father's desperate rage. I was ready to see the face of the horror I had helped create. The first egg opened, and what came out of it stopped my hollow heart. I could not understand it. One after another, the 7 eggs hatched, and from each of them emerged a human baby, perfect and healthy. They cried and moved in the nest, oblivious to the nightmare world in which they had been born. I looked at the queen, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. These were not the monsters she had promised me. These were not the soldiers she needed for her war. She looked at me, and for the first time, her voice in my mind was not a command nor a declaration. It was a whisper, filled with a sadness and a longing of eons. The unexpected end of my story was not about my fate. It was about hers. Monsters, no. You are the monsters. Your capacity for war, destruction, chaos. That is what I needed, but not to create soldiers. My people cannot fight. We are too tired. The war is already lost. And suddenly, I understood everything. The final twist, the purpose of my sacrifice. The silence will come. It will consume this world as it consumed mine. My race cannot survive. But life must continue. I extracted your humanity, your ability to thrive in chaos, not to create weapons, but to create an ark. The babies, my children, they were the next generation, not of her species, but of mine. Pure human blood, created from my essence, gestated in her eternal womb, born to survive the coming darkness. She was not spawning monsters to fight for her kingdom. She was using her last breath of power to save humanity, to give it a future, hidden in the deepest, darkest place on the planet, safe from the end of all things. Your sacrifice has given your species one last chance. Now, your work begins. You are no longer a prisoner. You are a guardian, a father. Care for them, teach them, prepare the new humanity to inherit a silent world. My ship sank, and the Queen of the Abyss took me to her realm. She promised I would sire monsters, and she kept her word. Because in the eyes of the universe, in the war against silence and nothingness, there is no monster more beautiful and terrible than hope. And I am their father.